Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to continue the series I've been doing. By the way, let me know if you're getting bored of it or if you want me to, got any ideas for new videos. I've obviously basically run out of albums to review, unless I redo all the ones I've already done. And I'm not about to do all this new vinyl stuff, Record Store Day, because I think it's a rip-off, one giant rip-off. And I've decided pretty consciously over the last few months I'm going to make a real conscious attempt not to acquire more vinyl, because I don't really think there's much I need, second-hand or new. Got enough stuff cluttering up the house as it is, so just thought I'd say that. Anyway, so the topic for today is going to be my 15 favourite solo Beatle album closers. And so, yeah, I'm going to do that today. A couple of people suggested I do favourite second tracks. And I've also thought about doing favourite openers to side 2, but you tell me if this is going too far and I'll stop. Or I'm quite happy to continue because I quite enjoy this kind of thing anyway. So in reverse order, number 15, we've got Meat City from Mind Games, Lennon, 73. A really good rocker with scorching guitars and strong band performance from the New York band he was using at the time. And I've said it before, but check out the 2004 Mind Games CD reissue, supervised by Yoko, because it's by far and away the best version of Mind Games out there. The original version is a little bit cluttered in its production, but if you play that 2004 one, it's on another level. So that was 15. Number 14, we're going to choose Ringo's track from Beaucoups of Blues, Silent Homecoming. And I just think this is a really moving song, not particularly well known outside those of you who don't know Ringo, but it's a very sad song about a woman who's waiting for her son to come home from war, and she doesn't know what's happened to him, whether he's dead or alive, and her thoughts keep wandering to his childhood when all his hand grenades were merely toys. War was just a game that he was playing with plastic guns like other little boys. And every day when play was over, he'd put his little toys away, and she'd be standing waiting for him the way she's waiting for him today. And in the last verse, it's heartbreaking because she tries her best not to cry, but there's that hearse filled up with flowers. Did he really have to die? It's just a really affecting song, brilliantly. I mean, Ringo didn't write it, but he does a very touching vocal, so top marks to Ringo and the band for doing that one. Save the World from Somewhere in England next. As a song, I don't think it's particularly memorable. I just think the words are brilliant, and I think it's, if push comes to shove, I'd say it was George's best sort of protest song he's ever written, because it's not sort of in your face, it's not preaching, it's just quite resigned and quite sad. Rainforests chopped for paper towels, 1 acre gone in every hour, our birds and wildlife all destroyed to keep some millionaire employed. The nuclear power that cost you more than anything you've known before, the half-wit's answer to a need for cancer, death, destruction, greed. We're at the mercy of so few with evil hands determined to reduce this planet into hell, then find a buyer and make quick sale. And then probably my favourite verse is, to end up on a happy note, like trying to make concrete float. It's very simple knowing that God in your heart lives. So very heartfelt. And then the chorus, obviously, we've got to save the world, someone else might want to use it. And it's as relevant today as it was in 1981 when he wrote it. I just think it's a brilliant song. Number 12, we're going to go with Ringo the Fourth, and the last track from the album, Simple Love Song, which probably could have been a candidate for a single, actually. It's very jaunty and sort of disco-flavoured, Arif Mardin production, obviously, with the superb band he's got on this album, David Spinoza, Tony Levin, and Steve Gadd. And although I've got a feeling they don't actually play on that particular song. Yeah, no, I'm wrong. So on this particular song, Danny Korchmar and Lon Van Eaton on guitars, David Foster on piano and keyboards, Chuck Rainey on bass, and Ringo handling the drums on his own. So I think this is a lovely, catchy song from Ringo. A lot of people dismiss this album, but I'll stick up for it. I think it's a really strong end to the album, as is this one from Paul McCartney, 1983. I want to give this song a bit of love, Through Our Love. A very touching ballad for Linda, I assume. And I just watched a 1983 interview when he goes out of London's Air Studios and he gets into a taxi with the reporter from the Tube, whose name escapes me now. And basically she said her favourite track on the Pipes of Peace album, which had just come out just at the time of the interview, was this track Through Our Love, and Paul said, oh yeah, my kids like that one. So it's probably a bit of a family favourite. It's not the kind of song he would ever do live. It's got very sort of extravagant production from George Martin, very sort of nice strings, but very heartfelt words, and just goes to show he didn't just write love songs for Linda in the early 70s, Maybe I'm Amazed and My Love. He continued doing love songs in subsequent years and decades until she died. Number 10, we're going to go with George and Learning How to Love You, which is the glorious acoustic closer to 33 1/3. And just the whole sort of mood of the album is sort of laid back and happy, and he just sort of got together with Olivia, and this song is presumably to Olivia, and it's got a lovely acoustic guitar solo in the middle. And George was quite fond of this song because he put it on the B-side of both singles from the album, I seem to remember. But, you know, it's not that well known, so it deserves more recognition. Number 9, I'm going to go with the very charming closer to the Ringo album, where he's saying, you know, at the end, it's the end of the night, and so it's off we go. Though I may not be in your town, you know that I can still be found right here on this record, spinning round with the sound. I just think it's glorious. And then the spoken word good farewell at the end, where he mentions the other 3 ex-Beatles, and Vinnie Poncia and Jim Keltner and all the others. And so it's a big good night from your friend and mine, Ringo Starr. It just works really well without being schmaltzy. So that's number 9. Number 8, we're going to go with London Town, one of my favourites, as you know, if you've watched my channel. So More Smooth and the Grey Goose, I just think it's wacky, and recorded off the Virgin Islands on a boat. And it starts off with these minor chords, and then Joe English comes charging in on the drums, with Paul playing this compulsive bass line, and then these mad words about More Smooth and the Grey Goose, and that they work really well. It's a very nautical song, appropriately so, because that's where it was recorded. So I love that one. Number 7, we're going to go with Ringo, and a very strong closer to Time Takes Time, with very strong backing vocals, very strong melody. This song lyrically is quite similar in sentiment to If You Believe from George, in terms of, you know, what you do will come back to you. And if you believe, or if you have faith, you know, things will come right in the end. And that kind of sentiment, and very uplifting song from Ringo, top marks for that. And then we've got John with the closer to the rock and roll album with Just Because. And this is not a song he particularly knew well from his childhood, but Phil Spector recommended it for him, and John sings it as if it was an all-time favourite of his, and saying, remember this? I must have been 13 when this came out, and all that. And then sings the song with gusto and passion, and there is an alternative version on a bootleg where he was drunk out of his mind and he sings it appallingly. But on the record, it was one of the few tracks to survive from the Spector sessions. There were 4 tracks which survived on the album, plus Angel Baby, which is now released officially on Give Me Some Truth compilation. I think those 5 are the top tracks recorded with Spector, and Just Because is probably the best. Very nice ballad. I forget who wrote it. It's not a particularly well-known song, I don't think. It might be. Lloyd Price wrote it. But it's a sort of ultimate breakup song, you know, just because you left and said goodbye doesn't mean that I will sit and cry, even though my heart would tell me so. Darling, I would rather let you go. So that's the kind of sentiment behind that. Now we've got Ringo's gorgeous closer to Sentimental Journey album. If push comes to shove, might be my favourite song on the whole album. I just love the melody. I love the way Ringo harmonises with himself. Very rare that happens. Arranged by Les Reed and George Martin produces. And it's just really moving. And, you know, it is a bit sort of over the top and sentimental, but, you know, that's me. I like that kind of thing. So that's why it's so high. Number 4, we've got the glorious closer from George to Material World. That is all with the kind of simple intro. And I think it's Gary Wright or Nicky Hopkins on keyboard and George on guitar and Jim Keltner on drums, and just this heartfelt lyric. And he could be singing to a woman or he could be singing to God. It doesn't really matter. It's one of those songs which is kind of ubiquitous in its meaning and very effective and gorgeous melody. Very short guitar solo, unfortunately. Could have been longer, but and then a lovely bit of philosophy in the middle 8 about, you know, silence often says much more than trying to say what's been said before. So number 3, we're into now the top 3, and we're going to go with the fantastic closer to McCartney 2, One of These Days, which to me is head and shoulders above the rest of the album, literally, even better than the single coming up, in my opinion. Just a glorious melody and very simple stripped down production of just Paul on acoustic guitar, with applying quite a lot of echo to his voice to great effect. I remember Tim Rice at the time saying he thought this was probably the best song on the album as well. So that was One of These Days. Number 2 is another sentimental choice, and Invisible Ray, you're not going to like this, but I'm going with Warm and Beautiful. Don't care what anyone says. I think it's just a glorious love song to Linda, and it's a nice one to play on the piano, nice chords, and yeah, I just love everything about it. Yeah, it's sentimental as hell, but I think Elvis Costello is a big fan of this track, I seem to remember reading. So that's number 2 from the Speed of Sound album from Wings, 1976, Warm and Beautiful. Number 1, we've got If You Believe from George Harrison, self-titled, 1979. I watched the video from Richard Cook where he was talking about potential singles from 79 which didn't become a single, and he mentioned this track and he said it was one of his all-time favourites. Well, it's also one of my all-time favourites. Yes, maybe it could have been a single, but I think George at the time suffered from not being sort of au courant and in line with what was happening music-wise. So I think though the track is, I'm not sure if it would have done anything, but it remains an absolute favourite of mine. And it's co-written with Gary Wright, actually. I'm not sure if Gary Wright played, and presumably he plays in it as well, but it's lovely sentiment behind the lyric. You can worry a life away with not knowing what each new day may bring to you, or take each day as it goes on. Wake up to the love that flows on around you. If you believe in you, everything you thought is possible. If you believe. So it's a song about, you know, have some confidence in yourself, have some faith, things will turn out right, should I say, eventually, even if it doesn't appear to be the case now. So just hang in there, basically. And there's this gorgeous guitar from George sort of soloing towards the end of the song, and very uplifting melody. Just love everything about it. So that's my top 15 Beatles solo album closers. Thank you for watching. I'm not sure if you agreed, and it's no problem if you didn't. It's only my opinion, not to be taken seriously, but it's all good fun. So we'll see you next time.